Welcome to the Trinidad and Tobago Film Festival 2020's industry events. Thank you so much for joining us. This year, our full program will be screened online until the 15th of September, which is tomorrow. So you have one more day to catch all the fabulous films that are screening in this year's festival. Our new media exhibition is installed at Medulla Art Gallery in Woodbrook, Port of Spain. So be sure to check it out. You're gonna love it. If you're joining us via Facebook Live, please feel free to post all your questions in the comments section below, and we'll address them during the session. Don't forget that you can check out our full film listing and pay for film bundles at online.ttfilmfestival.com. We would like to take a moment to thank all of our ttff 2020 sponsors and partners. We are given leading sponsorship by the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and the Arts, contributing sponsorship by Republic Bank Limited, and Shell Trinidad and Tobago Limited is supporting all of our online industry events like today's Q&A session with the filmmakers of the Lime Bundle in today's screening package. My name is Kafi Kareem, and I am the founder of Storyplay TV, a Trinidad and Tobago company taking Caribbean video entertainment to families worldwide. I am here with Henrique Amud, who is the maker of Atordoado. Did I get it right? Okay, great, from Brazil. And I'm here with Laura Gamse, who is the maker of Susana. And I'm also here joined with Chantal. Chantal is the maker of Sinceramente candy. And you're working out of, well, the film was shot in multiple locations, Venezuela, Curacao, and Bolivia, right?
No.
No?
Venezuela and Curacao.
Just Venezuela and Curacao. Thank you for letting us know. And we have Annabelle. Annabelle is the maker of a film that's English. The English title is Unpacking. And this is a Puerto Rican film, right?
Yes, and Dominican.
Yes, and Dominican. A Puerto Rican and Dominican film. Okay, well, thank you all for joining us. We are really excited to dive into your package. Today's Lime package deals with a lot of themes around immigration and also other vulnerable populations like political dissenters and the ways that economic disenfranchisement and gender play into some of the disturbing situations that vulnerable populations who are either immigrant populations or who are political dissenters find themselves in. So thank you very much for being brave enough to make these films, everyone that's here. I would love to kick it off with you, Henrique. Atordoado looks at, hi, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you very much.
Atordoado looks at the 1960s coup in Brazil, correct?
Yes.
And you are nominated for the Best Documentary Short at this year's Trinidad and Tobago Film Festival. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Can you talk to us about why it was important for you to tell this story?
Our short film is about a journalist and a human rights activist that after the coup in the 60s, he was arrested many times, but in the 70s, he was arrested once again and tortured, and his son, he was like 1.5 years old son, got beat up by the military police, and it was something really awful, really unspeakable. And it's not an isolated case. It happened many times to many people here in Brazil. And nowadays we have a president that he endorses that. He endorses torture. He endorses the military dictatorship. And some people who like our president, they also like to say that the military dictatorship wasn't criminal. They weren't doing anything wrong. And we need to remind people of what happened. We can't let those stories be forgotten. So that's why I did this movie.
Yes, and you end the film with a quote along those lines that says that it says something along the lines of I have no grudges, I have memory.
Yeah, I have no grudges, I have memory.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
That's a line from the Hemi, our interviewer, and he was really it was really painful, everything that happened to him, and the torture really had terrible consequences to him and to his family and to his son, who killed himself, and still he is really thoughtful about everything. He really has a good head, a really good things to say, and that line is just amazing. We had to finish with that.
Yes, and even after all of that multi-generational trauma, he is still a truth teller.
Yeah.
And very much still speaking the truth. Even with his disease, Parkinson's, he has Parkinson's disease, and so even in that state, he's still committed to telling the truth. What a remarkable man. Thank you for making this documentary.
Thank you very much for having me.
Laura?
Either one's fine.
Laura's fine? Okay,
yeah, that's fine. Laura sounds much nicer though.
Okay. And you are, Susana is a short from the US that looks at, is it an immigrant family? I wasn't sure if they were native or if they were immigrants.
Yeah, Susana herself is from Mexico, and she came over to the US when she was.
And we did see that Susana started working very early on in her childhood, around the age of 14. And she was simultaneously the pride of her family while experiencing some really hard things in her work situation. And she worked in a slaughterhouse. She felt the guilt of slaughtering all those animals. And you end the film letting us know that slaughterhouses are actually one of the most vulnerable places that immigrants can work, because ICE often raids them, right?
Right.
So talk to us about why you wanted to make this film now.
Sure. Generally, there's a media blackout in slaughterhouses, and so we hardly ever see what's going on behind the doors. And it's incredibly hard to get access to even anyone who's worked in a slaughterhouse or currently works in a slaughterhouse because of that media blackout, and then also because of the vulnerabilities of those who are working there. And so Susana is an amazing woman who, when she was 14, she'd wake up at 4:30 in the morning before high school, go to work in the slaughterhouse. And the first week she was working there, she was put on the kill floor. And she would work for 3 hours and then go home, take a shower, and then go to high school. And so at that time, you know, she was doing what she had to do to survive, bringing home money to her family. And, you know, over the 10 years after that, I think she processed what had really gone on, and she's become an animal activist since then. And that's what brings us into the present day with the film and the message that she's trying to give her daughter as her daughter turns 14. So I thought it was important to show this, because it's so often behind closed doors. So many people participate in this industry, basically everyone who eats meat. And so a lot of people don't want to hear about the suffering of those people who bring that meat to your plate, more or less. And so Susana is basically doing everything she can to not make people feel guilty, but to just make people aware of what's happening, because it's, you know, if you care about human rights, animal rights go hand in hand with that. And, you know, what's happening behind the doors of the slaughterhouses is something we should all care about if we care about human rights.
Got it. What I love about your film, which is a common theme in other films, is that you look at the motivation of children. A lot of the protagonists in the films that we're looking at today and that we're talking to their filmmakers are driven by the desire for a better life for their children. And you show that beautifully as well, that Susana's motivation is very much to take care of her child. And now that she is an animal activist, that still remains, and she still works hard, but, you know, she hopes that her daughter will understand that. And so what made you decide to make sure to include her daughter in the story?
I guess it's just the passage of time and how things change generationally. Susana's parents were proud that she had the job that she has, and now she hopes, her greatest hope is that her daughter won't have that same job.
Right.
And I think also just the love between a mother and daughter, while disagreeing on just a basic premise of whether it's right to eat animals, is interesting. And then also the fact that Susana is willing to risk her life and, so much of what she's worked for in her life, going out every week and stopping a truck on its way to the slaughterhouse in order to give water and food to those animals. So kind of the guilt, the residual guilt over what she did previously and what she's doing now to try to move past that and also bring awareness to what's happening is all really interesting to me through the lens of her daughter's perspective.
Got it. Well, thank you again for making the film.
Thank you.
Chantal, Sinceramente Candy.
Yes.
So Sinceramente Candy looks at a first-person narrative account of a woman who she migrates from Venezuela, is it?
Yeah, from Venezuela.
Okay, and then she lands in Curacao?
Yes.
Okay.
This is, they also land in other islands around here, but then I made it from Curacao without specifying Curacao to address that is happening in the other islands too.
And so was this based completely on a true story?
Yes, I interviewed refugees that are living here, that are working in this type of industry as well. And I put all their stories together and then made one story to tell their story, basically.
Right. And so what we see is a reenactment of all of your research that weaves together a narrative, a first-person narrative that is essentially docufiction, but very much rooted in the truths that you uncovered in your research.
Exactly. Yes.
Fantastic.
I had to, and this is for my my graduation. This is my graduation film, and then I did the research. I talked with the organizations and with everybody, and then make a story out of it. So yeah.
Fantastic. So talk to us about your decision to make this, to have the voiceover telling this story.
Well, it started with last time I was in ttff. Actually, the Dutch embassy held a cocktail party, and then I met the representative from the United Nations that was there. And then I said, there's a lot of things happening. By that time, there was dead bodies from Venezuelan people that stranded on our land because the boat broke and these things. People were dying at sea trying to cross over here. And I said, we look at them as like the enemy, the people that try and come here to take our jobs, also take our men, because as the story Sinceramente Candy, it's like about Venezuelan refugees that end up in prostitution or to survive and provide for their families. And then so on the island, there's, a lot of these thugs that, they come and they take our men and take our jobs and stuff like that. So they're seen really as the enemy, but I said, I would love to see, what it means to be in their shoes. What would it mean to look at it from their perspective, what they go through. And then as I did it for my graduation, I had a very limited time to do a lot of things because I wrote it, directed, produced, casting, everything. So it was a lot of work. And then to also have a dialogue where they have to, be talking, then it would take much more. And then with the story, just tell what is happening, just let the people know from this way. So I decided, to go with a voiceover, to just say what what they're going through, and then add additional, the reenactment of things that they experienced in order to bring forth their perspective of what they go through, and how they have to entertain somebody when they don't want, but they have to do it in order to buy medicine for their kids, one of the refugees I interviewed was, they were almost graduating, and I was graduating, and I was interviewing them to make a film. And, you know, I studied in Europe, so I was interviewing them, and they were like, I had just one semester to go, and I'm here now, going from house to the bar, do things with men I never thought I'd do, and then come back because you can't be on the streets because of police. And so the life changed from almost becoming a doctor, almost becoming anything they were studying, to 4 walls where they are hiding and then go do things with men and then come back home, you know? So I was like, I want this story to be out there for people, you know, to, I don't know, for people to try and understand from their perspective. And I had viewings I had a cast of 90 people. And so the viewings for the cast and for some people, you know, because I had to do this in link with my graduation. And everybody was crying. And then there was this big tall guy, and he came in like all bouncy, and then he left crying, and he said, you know, I was seeing them as that too, like, you're nothing, entertain me, do this for me, and then I'm gonna give you crappy money and I'm gonna go about my way, but without thinking what this means for those girls, what it means for them to, you know, to be in that position where they have to do these kind of things. So anybody who, you know, gets that message, and for me, it's very satisfactory.
Well, I think it was a very powerful decision because you definitely got the sense that somebody was telling you her story. And as you know, since in Trinidad, we also have a lot of Venezuelan immigrants, some of whom may find themselves in situations that are similar. I think it's really important that we're screening your film at the Trinidad and Tobago Film Festival. And I'd like to thank you so much for making it, because it really is an important story to tell it. Thank you so much. Annabelle. Unpacking. Unpacking looks at migrants from La República Dominicana who moved to Puerto Rico. And it's from a female perspective. And we get a lot of stories about the different ways that these women have experienced exploitation because of their economic situation and also because of their immigrant status. And what's lovely is that you also bring in academics and other people who look at social structures to talk about the way that patriarchy, economics, and gender play into the self-worth that these women have. And what I think is lovely about your film is that it's really a film that ends on a positive note about recognizing your self-worth and recognizing what you deserve in life, and knowing that you always deserve the best regardless of whether you're an immigrant, a woman, doesn't matter. Talk to us about why you wanted to make this film, please.
Well, we decided to make the film because of the staggering numbers of the high percentage of Dominican women that suffer different types of abuse in Puerto Rico. It's 96% of the population suffers some type of abuse, either psychological, economic, physical, or sexual. And most of these women find refuge in the Center for the Dominican Women that is in Rio Piedras near the University of Puerto Rico. So the Department of Social Workers in the University of Puerto Rico had spent many years researching their problems and their lives. So they had tons of interviews they had already made when I arrived to the project. So my job was to put them into a documentary that they could use as a tool. And so I gladly accepted the challenge of putting it visually, audiovisually. The point is that it has a happy ending, even though, of course, there are very sad endings to some of these women's life, but we didn't want it to be a sad ending. We wanted to make it a happy ending because they were very worried about the re-victimization of women. So we wanted to shine a light and raise awareness for their issues and for the work that the Center for the Dominican Women was doing, but also ended on a more positive note that there is hope and that there is a way to get out of the patterns of abuse.
I definitely shine through that mission to communicate that. And I think it's definitely going to empower a lot of people. What I love is also that you looked at psychological abuse, which is one type of abuse that often is ignored. We often see portraits of psychological, sexual abuse, physical abuse, economic abuse even, but you also touched on psychological abuse, which I think is an important and invisible type of abuse that is used to control and oppress women. So thank you very much for that. We don't have a lot of time. I've been told by the festival that we only have about 5 more minutes. But before we leave, I would love it if each of you could just share with me, if you could touch an audience with just one takeaway from your film, what would that be? What would be the one thing that you want audiences to walk away from your film with? We can start with you, Henry.
Just that we can never forget about what happened in our past, not only in Brazil, but politically, historically, everything all around the world. We need to look to our past. We can never forget that, because that will be the way to the future.
Agreed. Laura, I'm sorry. I always want to say Laura.
That's more, I like it better that way. I would say, every time you have a meal, think about what's on your plate and who brought it to you and what they went through. And let's make sure that we don't ignore laborers who are working behind closed doors, because sometimes the worst human rights abuses, according to Human Rights Watch, happen in slaughterhouses.
Thank you. Chantal?
I would say don't judge anybody because you don't have any idea what they go through, what kind of what's happening on the inside. But try to be like more understanding and more helping to other people.
Good takeaway. Thank you. Annabelle?
I would say to believe in the power of woman and sorority.
Believe in the power of woman and sorority. Okay, thank you very much for all of your contributions. Again, as a reminder, today's Lime Bundle looks at themes of immigration and other vulnerable populations like political dissenters. It looks at intergenerational trauma and the ways in which oppression affects multiple generations. And it also looks at one of the silver linings, or rather a ray of hope, for how women and other vulnerable populations can use self-worth as a way to emerge from situations that may be difficult, and how they can, even if they have a difficult past, as in the case with the Susana who worked in the slaughterhouse, it's never too late to take action, to make a change. And so we have lots of exciting themes that range from history to contemporary issues. And I would invite everyone to check out today's bundle.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.